Well, whilst it's true that the four horsemen are no longer there, but for anyone to assume that they are any less dangerous today, they're simply being naive. If anything, they are even more dangerous now than they were before. What they did in their prime time, so to speak, when they were enjoying their celebrity status, that they were dangerous because they came up with the ideas of ridiculing religion with contempt and creating outright hatred for religion and people of religion across the board. And in the process of doing that, they also made millions of dollars. So, of course, they were dangerous. But the legacy they left after subsiding, that legacy has made them even more dangerous because they were making money. They were ridiculing religion with contempt, to quote Richard Dawkins and all the other Christopher Hitchens. I mean, I don't want to say too many negative things about that guy, even though I never respected him, still don't respect him. But the fact that he's no longer among us to defend himself, so I want to sort of ease off on him. But the way, the idea they created that, look, what more do you want? You get to insult people, ridicule them, mock them, and you enjoy the celebrity status, and you make a lot of money. What more do you want if you live in the West? What more do you want? So that is the legacy they left behind, because the idea of doing all this and financially doing well, because they sold their best-selling books in those periods. Now, when they moved away from the main stage, they left a huge vacuum, and that created a whole new rat race to fill that vacuum. Everybody wanted to become next Richard Dawkins. Everybody wanted to become next Christopher Hitchens or Sam Harris. Perhaps not many people wanted to become Daniel Dennett because of his philosophical flavor, and philosophy is not everybody's cup of tea. So perhaps not many people wanted to be Dennett, but for sure, the other three people everybody were after filling their shoes, after becoming next them. And that has diluted the quality further. And I say diluted the quality further, what I mean by that is that the type of quality in the discourse these guys created was very thin, was very weak to start with. But when they moved away, we had a whole new generation of YouTubers and internet sort of the for want of a better word, speakers. Don't want to use any derogatory term for anyone. And the way in which they conducted themselves, I have heard people likening Islam to cancer. I've had people who were talking about my mission is to destroy Islam or finish Islam. How exactly, he didn't mention that. It's one of the Atheists Assembled conference, I think was the gentleman I'm referring to. That video, by the way, is no longer available on YouTube, but I think you can still find certain bits and pieces here and there, in which openly, my job is to finish Islam. Well, we know when atheists want to finish something, what they do. We know the laws of suspect in France. We know what Mao did and Pol Pot did and Stalin did. So it's a very dangerous idea, because, you simply cannot finish Islam by saying Islam is bad. You cannot convince 2 billion people on this that, look, I don't want to tell you anything about atheism. And that's what atheists do. It's a separate topic, and I will at some point address this too, that why atheists always refrain from talking about atheism and always talk about religions, where they should be promoting atheism, and that atheism cannot simply be a legitimate right position because you are trying to prove everything else wrong. That is not the right way of going about it. You have to produce the inherent good qualities of atheism as a separate subject. But anyway, so you cannot go about and tell 2 billion people that your religion is wrong. Therefore, you should leave it. You have to bring something good, something which is going to be better than Islam's economic system, the charity, the zakah, something better than the Islamic modesty, something better than the every other Islamic legal system, jurisprudence, something which has to be better than that. Simply saying, oh, God is not there, your religion is wrong, that's not going to be good enough. So if you cannot convince people to come off the religion, what alternative do you have? The typical atheistic one? Different studies show us somewhere between 40 million to 259 million people have been murdered at the hands of the atheists. I mean, again, no atheist will tell you how many people I've killed, but these are the different estimates. So that type of mindset, it crept up, and it just kept on coming and coming, and it's a barrage of angry, aggressive atheists who would never speak sense about the atheism or agnosticism or any other ism of that sort. But it was always the case that you are wrong because they all wanted to be Dawkins and Hitchens, and problem with that type of mindset is that you cannot go far with that. At the moment, what is happening on internet? Now, I see there are some people who speak with reason, and I think that it's always good to talk to those people. But the way in which atheists usually conduct themselves is not academic, it's not philosophical. And it cannot be academic or philosophical because people they've received their inspiration from, namely the Horsemen, they were not the academic or philosophical, even though Daniel Dennett should have done better. But he came up with some flawed ideas. Again, your question is not particularly about critiquing Daniel's work, but when you look at the ideas of not having the self, and that's, yeah, it's philosophy, yeah, it sure is, but it's a bad philosophy. So when you had these type of people inspiring people who are not, people who don't have the philosophical understanding of their arguments, people who don't even understand how to employ philosophy in your arguments, then the only thing you get is to fill these huge gaps. The only thing you get is aggression and anger, and that's unfortunately what has happened, and this is a dangerous legacy of these four people, and that makes them even more dangerous now than they were before.